morning and welcome to the Hobby Breakfast Show, kicking off your morning with Wargaming Chat. With you today are your regular hosts, Onod.
Hello.
And I am, as ever, OT.
And we also have the Mayor.
Hi guys.
Oh, good. There we go. That's the intro sorted. We join you today on the roads. We're driving through a wintry scene. Yeah. There's snow outside. OT has a glass of mulled wine in his hand as he drives, and I've got a lovely schnapps, something like that as well. We're feeling very Christmassy. OT might have put some Christmas music into the back of this.
Who can say? Some copyright-free.
Yeah, some gentle copyright-free bells or something.
Yeah.
And we bring you today the Christmas special. The Christmas special is an amalgamation of shit that we have cut from the already shit episode. So you can imagine how bad this is going to be. Yeah. If you don't want to listen to it, I would advise you don't. It won't be good. It won't be enjoyable. But it will mean that we can put an episode out without having to record.
It is technically content
over the Christmas period. It's a break for us, and it's an excruciatingly painful listen for you. They're really selling it. Mayor, what do you think of this episode?
La la la! If this gets left in, fuck you, listeners. Wait, oh no, you can soundbite that. No.
So. Thanks, man, Mayor. That really was a great thought on the level of the Buddha, I would say. Yeah. So we're going to introduce a few segments. We'll give a little bit of context just so that you don't think that we've gone insane. So first up, we have a real treat. The first ever thing
we recorded.
Me and OT recorded. We mostly recorded it just to test the software, didn't we?
Yeah.
And then Mayor said that we couldn't publish it because he wasn't in it.
Yeah.
And then since there, he said he doesn't care.
So we're going to publish it anyway.
Now that we've established the routine of us not always being in every episode, he was like, yeah, I don't care anymore. Yeah. So we're going to publish it. It's a conversation we had about what Legendary Legions we think the game should have. Yeah. Wasn't it, what did we call it? Like...
Fancy Legendary Legion or something, custom
like
Legendary Legion.
Wish list, something like that. Something bad.
Yeah.
So we hope you enjoy. It's probably going to be around half an hour. We'll see you in half an hour.
It might feel like longer, but it is only technically half an hour.
It will feel like longer because we just didn't know what we were doing. We still don't.
We still do. But it was more obvious back then.
Yeah.
Good luck finding any of this fucking usable at the end.
I look forward to log editing this to have a pause and just being like, what the fuck is this shit? Oh dear. Things they haven't touched on yet that they could do that we think are good ideas.
Yeah.
What would be your number one go-to then? Let's see if it's the same as mine.
Well, I think, as I've mentioned a couple of times before, I think there should be Balin's expedition to Moria. I think that's like a really obvious one that they can include. The fact that they already have something to build on, because in Balin's rules, obviously, you can take Gimli and you can take, I think it's some of the Hobbit heroes, maybe Dwalin or something. I think that'd be really cool. I think it would end up being quite similar to, hang on, let me find the book. The Fellowship, the Breaking of the Fellowship Legendary Legion, where each character comes with a special buff. So Legolas's shooting gets better, Gimli has the locks of Galadriel, things like that. I think that'd be quite cool.
So you envisage it as more of a kind of dwarf hero list rather than Balin with some dwarf warriors?
There's two ways you could go. It's just because obviously the expedition did contain a lot of troops, and the fact that you can take troop choice, I've just found it now. So you can take Floy, Ori, Oin, Gimli, and a bunch of others as well. Like, maybe you just make it as a separate fighting force then, a bit like, I don't know, like the one we've been looking at, Gothmogs, for instance, where you can take a bunch of heroes. And to be honest, I think Balin could do with a bit of a buff, because I think as he is, he's just not very good. Like, he's just a little bit too expensive for what you get for the points, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're doing it for fluff reasons, it's difficult to take him when you've got kind of Gimli available. You've got the King's Champion.
Yeah,
you could potentially even argue that just sort of Durin's a better hero, a bit more expensive, but you get what you pay for with Durin, because you get the extra defense, attack, wounds. So
yeah,
kind of makes it worthwhile, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So you would kind of perceive that as being, I think that's a good one though, isn't it? It is something which is kind of unexplored. What do you think? Because I would say that they're probably not doing that because it would mean using the Lord of the Rings dwarfs, and I feel like they want to use the Hobbit dwarfs, don't they?
Yep. Yes, they do.
Because when, and this is where we should probably say that neither of us really like the Hobbit that much. I mean, we're going off topic here, which is
expected.
But I think the first Hobbit film was fine.
Yep.
And then it just goes downhill. And there's various decisions, and we know why that is the case. It's because Peter Jackson wasn't meant to film it.
Didn't want to do it.
And then he was basically forced to by the studio for a variety of reasons, basically boiling down to money. But it just ends up in a film series that we don't think was as what it could be.
No.
But I think that's the reason, right? And we've seen this with Defense of the North, where they've imported those dwarfs from the Hobbit films into the Lord of the Rings era, the War of the Ring.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that that's then the way to go? You say, right, we take. They can release a new Balin model in the style of him as an older, I guess, because he was already pretty old in the Hobbit, wasn't he? Older version of his Hobbit self, and then he leads the Hobbit dwarf troops.
Yeah,
because I mean, if this was going to happen, that's the route they'd take, isn't it?
Yeah, and I don't know, like I'm personally, I really like the Lord of the Rings dwarf models. Like, I think even the basic dwarf warriors are great. I really like the Khazad sculpt. I don't have any Iron Guard, but I think they look cool, and Vault Wardens are great. So
I mean, we both like them, don't they? They were the first ever miniatures full stop that I bought, were the Dwarf Ranger kit, which I think still holds up really well.
Yeah, in a way that I'm not saying like all of the models haven't held up that well, but they certainly compare favorably to I was complaining a bit about the Gondor, and like the Gondor Warriors as well. Like I think, having painted a few of them fairly recently, I think the sculpts still hold up really well.
Yeah, absolutely, and the metal models are good as well. I want to say that the dwarf model is a bit more recent. But this is where, of course, we are, having started playing this in about 2010, probably don't know our history quite as well as other people might.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to say that those dwarf warriors were originally metal, and then they brought out a plastic kit later on when the game was doing well. So that might explain why they do hold up a bit better.
Yep.
Yeah,
I believe that.
It's a good idea. Did you have any kind of ideas for rules that you'd like to see? Do you think some sort of like last stand rule for Balin?
Yeah, I mean, you'd give I mean, I personally would do something like Bodyguard because like they all just don't take courage tests.
Yeah.
I'd give Balin not mighty hero, but maybe some element of like free might or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then or I what I've like recently, even though I have no intention of collecting them, like what they've done with some of the was it the Dale and I think it was King. Is it King? Oh, people are going to roast me for this. I can't remember. But basically, the fight that happens in
Brand or Bard.
Brand, and then Dane as well.
Yeah.
In that battle, they get synergy when the other one's trapped. So maybe that idea of like them being trapped in this confined space, like if a friendly hero is trapped within 6 or 3 inches or whatever, you can call a free heroic combat or something like a bit like with Sam and Frodo, like that kind of synergy.
You could do, and this is a bit of a rogue suggestion, so I don't think this will ever happen, but Balin actually dies a lot earlier. He dies when he's gone out to the this is where I listened to Lord of the Rings
a very long time ago.
No, I listened to the audiobooks a few months ago actually, because I hadn't read it in years, and because on Audible you get your free credit, and I actually listened to that.
We're not
on the
sponsored.
way, so we're not sponsored, mate. But, we'd like to be. But I want to say it's called the Mirrormere, which is like this lake outside of the Dwarven realm.
Okay.
But anyway, beside the point, Balin actually gets killed way earlier, and it's in his tomb, isn't it, where they have their last stand?
Yeah.
So here's my slightly rogue suggestion. You set the Legendary Legion after he's died.
Wow.
And
so
but it works because they have the plastic kit.
They do. It's true.
And they've never done a like in Games Workshop's other games. You're probably not that familiar with what they've done in Age of Sigmar.
Anything else?
Anything else? And I mean, I've never played Age of Sigmar. I only know sort of roughly, but I know in Age of Sigmar you can take scenery as part of your army.
Oh.
So each faction gets like their the only one I can think of is that the Beast Men get like a herd stone, like a kind of magic stone. I don't know enough about Warhammer Age of Sigmar to speak more on it than that.
Okay.
But they all get this bit of scenery.
Mm-hmm.
You could do it that you get to deploy Balin's tomb on the board. And then the Legendary Legion buffs are about how far you are from the tomb.
Yeah, because there's precedent for that, because not deploying scenery, but there's, I think it's the Pass of the Druiden Legendary Legion.
Yeah, and also the Hobbits with the flowers that Gaffer Gamgee has.
Yeah. Okay.
So that, I've obviously slightly warped your initial idea there.
Yeah.
That could be great in terms of innovative, different.
Yeah.
And obviously you wouldn't have Balin, but you would have the other Hobbit era dwarfs as the heroes.
Yeah.
It could be quite interesting trying to run a legion where you don't have a big named character, but you do have some interesting buffs or synergies around, dwarves are always strong because they're high defense.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's just sort of, I think something to be interesting, but I doubt would ever happen. But they wouldn't really need to do too much because you just bundle in that tomb sprue.
Yeah.
And then that's it. You're good to go.
Mm-hmm. The other thing, like if they were really pushing it, they could do 2 Legendary Legions. They could do one before he dies and one after he dies. So you do the initial expedition with Balin, and then I mean that idea of I
mean, if if they ever do like a Khazad source book,
Yeah.
and it feels unlikely, doesn't it, at the moment? But then in previous editions, there have been 2 source books based on the dwarfs and Khazad.
Mhm.
We're talking, because I remember owning one of them, but we're talking back in the Blue One Ring rulebook era now, a decade ago, basically. But they brought out 2 dwarf rulebooks for that.
Well,
So
like
it's not.
dwarves haven't had shit. Like, I mean, the ones I'm talking about, the Lord of the Rings dwarves. But like, in terms of like releases for that, I feel like there's been nothing. There's certainly been nothing centered around that time.
No, you could do Durin as well, and actually that would work quite well, because although they're not doing the Amazon TV show, they're clearly kind of doing the Amazon TV show without paying for it, aren't they? Because as we record, exactly as we record, they've just unveiled that new Elrond sculpt, who is a major character in the Amazon TV show, as far as we know from the trailers.
Yeah.
So they're clearly riding the hype, aren't they? And the dwarfs are going to be in that. I don't know if it's the Durin that is in our
so there's
game,
multiple Durins, aren't there?
because he gets reincarnated essentially, doesn't he? But you know, it's a earlier era. Yeah, but I think that would be good, Balin's team. So here's spoiler. Yeah. So if you haven't read Tolkien's work, which is, you know, almost getting on for, is it 80 years oldish at this point? But anyway, we'll get on to my number 1 suggestion then.
Yeah.
I don't know if you'll be expecting this, because it's not, you know, massively interesting, but I do think it needs Legendary Legion, and that is Minas Tirith. And not Reigns of Ithilien, like a proper Minas Tirith Legendary Legion. And I think there's 2 routes you can go down here. I think you either do the Boromir, Faramir flashback scene where they've retaken Osgiliath, and you do Boromir in his full glory. You could even give him like a better stat line, because obviously Boromir's stat line is kind of, I want to say, notorious in the game, in that he has an incredibly large amount of might.
Yeah.
And then obviously his Captain the White Tower version has full fate, but then in his Fellowship version he doesn't, because of course he dies. And I think you could do something around that Captain the White Tower version.
Yep.
And he probably doesn't really need buffing, does he? Because he's already basically.
I think he's Gondor's best hero.
He's probably one of the best heroes in the game. I mean, for his points, you're not going to get many better. Obviously, if you put him up against like someone like Sauron.
Yeah. But I think Sauron exists in an alternate universe.
He's in his own like ranking of hero.
Yeah.
But I think him, Faramir, you can do something to Osgiliath veterans, and they're not going to get a plastic set. Like, let's be realistic.
Sorry, guys.
They're just not.
It's not happening.
But they're probably going to be. That's probably the sort of set that they will do now that they've got this new box set with Faramir coming out. I can see them in a couple of months having Forge Worlds Osgiliath veterans.
Yeah,
I could see that being realistic.
I think, in fact, I think it's likely. I think it's very likely. It's for me, it's a really obvious thing to do with them.
I mean, it should be.
Yeah.
And then I think you make that the Legendary Legion. The thing is, though, is because of the way they're releasing Legendary Legions, I don't think that will happen.
No.
Because they are bringing out books based on regions, and they've already done the Gondor one.
Mm-hmm.
But they did the Gondor one without doing Gondor.
Yeah.
Like you didn't really get anything that is Gondor. You got there are more Rohan Legendary Legions in that
in Gondor at War.
In Gondor at War, and Rohan do not need another Legendary Legion.
No,
but I mean, they did the Aragorn ones. They did the one where you can have Gondor in the, the Black Gates, Men of the West. Fine.
Yeah.
But you could do Boromir, and then the other option is you do something with Denethor.
Okay.
Because unless you are running a fluffy army, why would you take Denethor?
I don't know. He's pretty good. Pretty good bang for your buck. Like,
is he?
Well, I mean, what is he? 35 points. Hang on, I'm literally scrolling through the book now.
Okay. Let's quickly run through Denethor and what you
30,
get. 35
points.
So 35 points. In context, then he's about the same points as like a good Hobbit hero. And for those points, stat line, yeah, you get fight 5, strength 4, defense 5, attacks 2, wounds 2. Fine. No might, no fate. Great. The issue with him, though, right, is the special rules.
Yeah.
He has to be your leader unless you take Aragorn. So essentially, unless you're taking Aragorn in the same list as him, and if you are taking Aragorn and you're doing a fluff list, you're probably not going to include Denethor, because Denethor's already died by the time Aragorn gets into the city.
Yeah.
And if you're not taking a fluff list, you're probably going to take someone better for the point. So he's your leader, and at that point, he's going to die, basically, isn't he? Because he has no fate. He's only defense 5 and he's only wounds 2.
Yeah.
I was at one point thinking about doing an army of Denethor, and ultimately I decided not to because I just knew that he would die every game and he would just give away victory points. And I mean, I'm not the most competitive person ever, but I don't want to just sort of give away points to my opponent and make it impossible for me to win any game. I at least want to think that I can win even if I don't. But then his other rule, I think, is the major downside. He has to pass a courage test to act normally, and if he fails, the opposing unit, army, whatever, gets to control him. The player gets to move him, which isn't great. Now, if you take Boromir, he automatically passes the courage. So you might argue that in the list of Boromir, he becomes slightly better and you don't have to take Aragorn, but you still then got to make him your leader, which makes him the liability that he is. And if you're not taking Boromir, then you're not only basically saying here's a really weak hero, but I'm going to allow you about kind of a third to a quarter of the time. You'll be better on the maths of that in terms of him failing his courage test. But roughly, I imagine it's sort of 20 to 30% of the time, if he's got courage 5, your enemy is going to be able to move him, and then he's going to be even more vulnerable. So I think a Minas Tirith Legendary Legion, where you've got Denethor as the leader, but you may be actually given incentive to having him as your leader, with themed rules. You take away some of those big hitters, no Aragorn, no Boromir, so he's weak, but then you give some bonuses. You include that guy, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he packed in with Denethor. He has that special rule where he can shield, but he can still
Ingold.
You have him. You might have Gandalf the White. That could be really cool.
Yeah. No, I can see that.
I just think that Minas Tirith is a gaping hole in the Legendary Legion list.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like, I think it's more of a weakness of Gondor at War than it is so yeah, this legion should exist. You're right. This legion should exist, and I don't really like the idea of a strictly like defending the White City type Legendary Legion, that kind of thing, because I think you just end up with like Gandalf, Pippin, and some other like less significant heroes. So like
the only reason to include that Legendary Legion where it's like the defense is if you did like the book version, because then you could have a Minas Tirith and fiefdoms combined list.
Mhm.
Because whilst they're
And
not
then
in
that
the
already
films, they're on
kind
the
of
book.
Men of the West kind of does that. I mean, it does it badly, but it kind of does that.
Yeah, but you could have like a Fall on the Fat and that sort of thing,
Mm.
and the two-handed swords guys. You could do a bit more of it, couldn't you?
Clansmen of Lemerdon, or whatever it's called.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, I personally wouldn't go for that either. I think you either do like the Denethor's madness, but you make it interesting, and you make it less, less like Denethor feels like he's a liability, and he can still be a liability, but give you something back.
Mhm.
Like, for example, say that if Denethor dies, you can transfer leadership to another hero. Like, even a little rule like that, that's not really something that's been done in Lord of the Rings, but it's an interesting rule. Like, that idea of you have to try and kill loads of minor heroes to pick up the victory points for killing the leader. Like, you can transfer leadership to like lots of small heroes.
So there's a hero called Hurin, Lord of the Keys, I think that's his name.
Yeah,
who
there's that guy.
has that rule. So like, if the leader of your army is Gondor hero, then whilst Hurin the Tall is alive, your opponent can't score victory points for slaying the leader.
Yeah,
So
it's almost like this was meant to be a Legendary Legion, and then for some reason it didn't get included, because all of these heroes got released at the same time as Gondor at War, right?
Yeah.
But they're not. They don't actually get a purpose within the book.
No,
they're just dropped in. I think that's really odd.
Actually, they're not. None of those heroes that were in Gondor at War are in any of the Legendary Legions.
Yeah. I mean, we it's probably worth mentioning Gondor at War was the first book that they did.
Yeah.
Legendary Legions had never been done before. They're a completely new idea.
Yeah.
So they probably at the time might not have realised Legendary Legions would become what they are, which is, I think, they're quite a big thing now, aren't they?
Yeah.
Like when I like look at building a list, I probably start thinking with a Legendary Legion before I think of normal army list, just because they are more thematic. You get something for being thematic, a rules bonus, and they give you a bit more of a kind of focus to your force rather than just the whatever of the other lists.
Yeah.
So there might have been they maybe thought that because they were bringing in the Gondor units, therefore they didn't need the Legendary Legion, and then they were giving the armies that didn't get a new unit a Legendary Legion as a kind of
payoff.
But then I say that, and I'm already thinking, but they gave Gothmog new orc guys from Forge World, and he did get the Legendary Legion.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I disagree with my own point there.
But I'm going to then counter your own disagreement. They didn't release a new Gothmog model. So
true. But obviously they have now, and I don't know how far in advance they work. You'd assume that they hadn't already planned out the new edition.
You would assume.
You would assume, wouldn't you?
Not.
But I guess maybe there was a bit of a kind of this. There might have been that discussion of Gothmog's quite a big character. Do we want to release him in resin now, or do we want to see if the game is successful in this new edition, which it has been, and then wait? So that possibly is something that they discussed. Yeah. Should we do some others then? So what would you have as your maybe like number 2 and 3 choice?
It wouldn't be Rohan.
I think Rohan are needing Legendary.
Yeah. I mean, something Rivendell theme. I mean, Last Alliance. There should be a Last Alliance Legendary Legion. That to me is a no-brainer. But I suspect there is one coming real soon.
Yeah. Last Alliance is like an opener in football, right? And you've taken it past the keeper. You're about to slot it in. Yeah. If they don't do it, they're mad.
It's ridiculous. So something Last Alliance-y. I mean, could do it. I don't know. Like, they could do something around the battle for Lothlorien. I don't know if that exists yet. I don't think it does.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because they covered this as a idea in Defense of the North, but they didn't give the elves a legendary legion. So they gave the orcs attacking Lothlorien legendary legion, but nothing to counter it. It might be that they do a kind of generic Lothlorien legendary legion as part of the kind of Last Alliance elf book, though.
Yeah.
So it might be coming. Yeah, you would imagine that elves are quite popular. They've got a lot of plastic kits because of the Hobbit helping them out there, where you can combine those ranges. So you'd imagine that something's coming to them.
Yeah.
I imagine they're going to get a new starter box as well. I'd be surprised if they didn't.
It's true.
Because you could have Plastic Elrond, the Knights, and then the Last Alliance plastic kit. And obviously then the few men of Numenor, but not really a massive issue, is it? Yeah.
Fangorn, Treebeard, give the Ents something.
So this is what I had as my number 3. Slight bias. They are my favourite race and faction in Middle Earth, the Ents.
Yeah.
But I think really I have like a wider point that I want to make with my 2 and 3. So did you have any more before we get into that?
There are none directly. I mean, the only other one is Wanderers of the Wild, but again, I don't really know how you would actually do that.
How you'd actually do it, yeah. So I had Ents, and then I had, and I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on this, the Fellowship. Which I know already have one, but I am going to have to do a bit of explaining here. But
okay,
I'm pretty sure that I've said this before when we've been chatting about the Legion.
Yep.
I'm almost certainly, because 9 times out of 10 what I say is just complete drivel. But anyway,
much like this,
worse than this, probably. I'm kind of the view that mini factions, and by mini, I'm kind of meaning like the ultra specific, really only kind of capturing a very small group or moments, shouldn't be armies, they should be legendary legions. Okay. And the thing which I think crystallized this for me was when the Beornings came out and they were a legendary legion. And it
fucking Dunland.
Well, Dunland's a kind of part of like the wider Isengard, aren't they? But I guess Dunland fits into this actually as well. Now you mention it, where it's kind of like they're never going to ally with anyone else. And I know that in a moment you're going to say that the Fellowship should be able to ally with other people, and I'll come back to that in a moment. But if you have a force which doesn't really ever ally with anyone else and is just kind of their own micro sort of cosm of they're just a separate entity, why bother giving them an army rule? Why not just make them a legendary legion? Because you can then make it more interesting. You've got the kind of precedent of being able to do something more interesting, and I just think that that's better.
Okay.
Got a bit of distortion on your end there.
Okay.
That's all right though. I doubt the audio quality is going to be very good anyway. But anyway, now the reasoning is the Fellowship as an army is there so that you can not run them as the Fellowship. If you think about it. Because you have that army list there and you give them the alliance to most of the good factions. But the Fellowship never allies with anyone once they're the Fellowship.
Yep. And that's true.
And they do have Legendary Legion, that is after Gandalf died.
Yep.
And I just feel like the Fellowship, as the 9 individuals, should exist as a Legendary Legion on their own. And I love what they did with the Legendary Legion, where they get like the abilities based on what they got given at Lothlorien for the Breaking the Fellowship. I think it's really cool. It's a great idea. There should be something like that for when they are the Fellowship. And then the army list for the Fellowship should be, in my opinion, more like the Wanderers in the Wilds, because when you're taking Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli from the Fellowship so that they can be allied in with Rohan, or the Dead or Minister, or whatever it is they get allied in, we were taking Gandalf out to ally him with, whatever. That's not the Fellowship. That's them as separate characters.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my kind of reasoning. And I think the Ents are similar, whereby the Ents are kind of vaguely aligned with the other good forces, more because it's like the enemy of my enemy is my friend sort of thing, rather than that they're especially bothered.
Nice.
Because, they're only really interested in like the forest, and anyway, we don't really need to get into Ent logic. But why have them as an army list? And I think this is where like Legendary Legions have got to, where it's almost like the only reason that those forces exist as an army list is because they hadn't had the idea for Legendary Legions yet. And I think if you introduce the Ents now, if the Ents had come out in the same book as the Bjornings, there'd be a Legendary Legion.
For sure.
And it'll be interesting to see in the new edition whether they do start tweaking with where Legendary Legions and army lists, like what is a Legendary Legion? Is a Legendary Legion always just an army list, but you give it some extra rules because they can't take certain things? Or are they going to do more of what they've done with the Bjornings, where it's a sort of completely new idea, but rather than making it an army list, you make it a Legendary Legion?
Yeah, I think, the Ents sort of are virtually the same as the Bjornings in terms of like they've got a couple of big heroes. Obviously the troops are a little bit different because Bjornings do have a 20-point option, but like similar layout of the army, and a Legendary Legion with some cool rules.
It's a 2 hero and 1 troop army, and a 3 hero and 1 troop army. They're very similar, aren't they? Yeah. But that would be my kind of suggestion. And I realise that the Fellowship doesn't need a Legendary Legion.
No.
But I also think the Fellowship is probably the reason why most people like the Lord of the Rings. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea to give them some more attention. And it also means you can, because I know that a lot of people don't like the plastic set, and actually I will defend that plastic set. It's old. It's not the most detailed, but actually a lot of it is down to the paint jobs that you give it. You can make them look way better if you put a bit of care into the painting. So that's what I'll say with it. It's not actually as bad as I think a lot of people think when they look at the images online.
Okay.
It's not as detailed. I understand where people come from by saying they like the metal and fine cast versions better, but the plastic one's not good. But that's the only version of the Fellowship they actually sell. Why don't you give them some rules so that you can take them without elven cloaks, and there's a reason to take them without elven cloaks, as they are for the entire time they exist as 9 individuals. So that's kind of my thought process, but I don't think either of those are realistically going to happen.
No. Trying to think what else. Earl Young, he doesn't have a Legendary Legion, and if you're going to give Helm a Legendary Legion, might as well give Earl one.
It's interesting that Helm got one and Earl didn't, because they already had the models for Earl, and they had the what are they called? Are they just called Riders of Earl?
Sons of Earl.
Sons of Earl, that's the one. They already had all of that. But instead, they went, no, we're going to release a brand new hero
Mhm.
and give him a Legendary Legion.
Mm.
So yeah, but that would.
I know, but it's different, isn't it? Like it's. I think. I don't know how far back they're willing to go, like historically, as it were. Like, because if they've gone back to Helm, then are they willing to go back, further to the
True.
founding of
I'm not-
Rohan?
I'm not actually sure how much they've got licensing wise, because I think that like anything Silmarillion is strictly off limits. So I don't think they're allowed to go into like the really old stuff. They could do Earl because he's mentioned Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Well, and he's got a model, and like he's got Sons of Earl, and I think that would just be a good one.
It's just that if they bring out another Rohan Legendary Legion before the other stuff, that would not be a popular move.
There will be problems.
There'd be a mass riot.
Some kind of Arnor Legendary Legion. I don't think that one exists either.
Arnor. Arnor's almost one where you might argue that should that just be a Legendary Legion?
Yeah,
I guess you could argue that they could ally with the elves. That would be the only kind of caveat to that.
Yeah.
The Dead of Dunharrow, another one where, I mean, does anyone even run Dead of Dunharrow without taking Aragorn?
I think.
I mean, I'm sure people do, but
you'd be quite hard pressed because I think the Legion, for like the value you get from that Legendary Legion, it is really good, and it fixes a problem that the Dead of Dunharrow has, which is their only real hero is the King of the Dead. So it gives you access to a load more might, a load more maneuverability, and like if you can take Aragorn, in my opinion, you should. Like I think he is one of the strongest heroes in the game.
I mean, as you know, I have pretty much only poor experiences of Aragorn. So I feel like I always undervalue him based on my personal use of Aragorn, always resulting in him being terrible.
Yeah.
Just absolutely useless in pretty much every game I've ever played with him.
That might be a you problem.
It always certainly is. Yeah. And a conversation for another time in terms of Aragorn's performance. I need this. But he generally struggles to kill pretty much anything I throw him into.
Yeah. Did you take him with Anduril?
No, I haven't always taken Anduril. And to be fair, yes, you are right. And so, like but even so, some of the occasions where like, what was the game where I played you?
Yeah.
It was a small game, wasn't it? It was Aragorn and the four hobbits, because I was doing the kind of them in Bree was the theme. And then did you take? I think you were playing with elves, weren't you?
Elves. It was Mirkwood. So Legolas and so I allied Legolas into a Lothlorien list.
That was it.
So I had Haldir and Legolas.
But it was a wood elf, so it wasn't high. They weren't high defense.
No.
And Aragorn couldn't kill an elf.
Yep.
And yet, and this is another theme when I run that list. Sam.
Yep.
Just does work.
Massive overperformer.
Sam almost always is more useful than Aragorn in that army when I run it for 300 points. And I know it's not a good army. But when you see that army on paper, you think, right, Aragorn kills 300 points worth of models, and you hide the hobbits up a tree or something.
Mm.
And in reality, it's Sam kills like the essential unit and wins me the game if I'm going to win. And Aragorn just gets absolutely wailed upon, and his job ends up just being surviving. But anyway, we have strayed off topic into the woes of my 4 dice rolling.
Rice rolling. If you did If you did an Arnor one, you might as well do an Angmar one. I don't think Angmar need one. I think they're very good, but
No.
that could definitely be a thing. But yeah, I think I'm pretty much now just looking through the book. Mordor don't need any more. Like, I think the ones they've got, absolutely sort them out.
I wonder if Rings of Power becomes popular, whether they will do a Barad-dûr Legendary Legion though, and have Sauron. Because even if you don't pay for the, even if they don't get, I say don't pay. Obviously, Amazon might not want to give them the rights. But even if they don't want the rights, or Amazon don't want to give them the rights, and they do, you could presumably just do a Sauron miniature who's not in his armor. Because Sauron is a character in the Lord of the Rings. There's nothing stopping them from just doing him as, and having him with, say, the Black Numenorians. So that's something that they could do, which could be quite interesting.
Yeah. Well, again, that pairs. I mean, we're now talking about them in pairs. Really, we've paired off Arnor and Angmar.
Yeah.
And we've paired off Last Alliance and Barad-dûr, and I feel like those would both be. And I if there was a Last Alliance Legendary Legion, I would. I don't know if I'd buy it straight away, but I'd definitely look at getting that. I think that'd be really cool. Less so the Barad-dûr one. Like, I think that's not quite as interesting. But yeah, like. There should be a Last Alliance Legendary Legion. It's such a significant moment.
It's gonna happen,
yeah.
And they probably actually will do a Barad Legendary Legion Supposer, won't they? I wonder if I imagine they'll want to give Sauron a new sculpt.
Yeah,
probably Forge Worlds. Yeah, I don't think he's getting plastic.
No,
I think they'll want to do like a really detailed Forge World model and charge you about 40 quid for it.
Nah, more than that.
Nah, he's not that big though. If they're charging 40 quid for the bear, it'd be about that, wouldn't he?
And that was the amazing discussion of those Legendary Legions. We had some good ideas, didn't we?
We actually did. I think
Yeah.
I think Balin's one should be a real thing.
Balin's one should be a real thing, and regular fellowship with Gandalf should be a thing as well. Maybe with Bill the Pony, because he is everyone's favourite. That was a big pothole. Next up, and I might even timestamp skipping this because it is so bad.
Yeah.
Me and OT. You'll notice that Mayor's not in many of these.
Yeah.
That's because the only time we record stuff that's too bad to be edited in is when Mayor's not present.
Yeah.
He keeps us honest. He does. We thought it would be funny. So the idea was OT knows nothing about 40k.
Still don't. Proud.
He still doesn't. I do know stuff about 40k because of a misspent youth, which I regret.
Yeah. Troubled child.
And we thought it would be funny to do a introducing somebody who knows nothing about 40k to 40k, and we were gonna do a whole series.
Yep.
We were gonna, for example, make OT listen to an audiobook. We have since decided that's an awful idea because we don't have any passion for 40k.
Yep.
Just zero shits are given.
Yep.
So we decided that we would sit down and we would go through every single one of the Horus Heresy Space Marine Legions, and that I would sell them to OT in a kind of short minute explanation. It didn't go very well.
No.
And we'd already decided whilst recording that we weren't going to actually use the audio.
As you will be able to tell.
Yeah, increasingly we just got more and more exasperated and depressed by how bad the conversation was.
Because it was meant to be funny, and then it stopped being funny really, really quickly.
Yeah, I think it would have actually worked better if we had got Mayor to explain it to us, because he would have put more effort in, and then we could have just relentlessly mocked him.
Yeah.
And I think that was the missed opportunity. Better content. Mayor would have been very angry.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't have been able to actually get him to do it because
would have made him sad.
he would have cried. So you probably won't enjoy it, but it will definitely fill up the other half of this episode. Here is our 40k chat.
So what we're going to do is we're going to run through all of the Space Marine legions from the Horus Heresy. I'm going to give like I think. Should we say that I get like a minute to explain to you?
Yeah.
Some stuff,
Yeah.
and you are then going. You're then going to rank them.
Yeah.
So the first legion are known as the Dark Angel, and they come from a planet which I think is called Caliban.
Right.
So there's already some lovely like stealing from Shakespeare going on with that. And their whole thing is that they are led by they're led by a guy called Lionel Johnson, who is usually known as just the Lion. This is the Lion. And their whole thing is that they're like quite dark and brooding, and they're like knights. They go around chopping people up with their swords and shooting people with their plasma. They aren't really involved in the main fight because they are prevented from getting back to Earth, and because communication is made difficult by the other, like the traitor side. There's a bit where they kind of think that the goodies have lost, and so they go around like maliciously like destroying stuff that the baddies have, and then they find out that the goodies have won, and then they're like, oh, this is a bit awkward because we didn't do much. Anyway, they return back to their home planet, Caliban, I think, and they find on Caliban that Lionel Johnson sorry. Lionel Johnson's best friend, who I can't remember his name. I could open the Wikipedia page to find out his name, but that would be effort. His best friend has, shock horror, become a traitor, and so they have a big fight on Caliban, which eventually sees the entire planet being blown up. And they end up living on like a fragment of the planet that like just sort of flies through space independently. I'm pretty sure they attach some like massive engines to it, and they just like float around on this kind of like massive moon rock.
Wow.
But half of them are bad and half of them are good. And then they spend the rest of their existence trying to somehow prevent anyone from finding out that a few thousand of them are bad, even though the baddies escape and spread out across the entire universe. Somehow no one has found out that they're baddies. So yes, from that incredibly detailed description of the Dark Angel's lore, and this is why you might see, you probably won't because you don't care, but you might sometimes see extremely funny memes saying that Dark Angels are actually baddies because that is very lol. Where would you place them on our enormous ranking? Do you think they're legitimately interesting?
No.
Next up, then, is the Emperor's Children. And the Emperor's Children are baddies.
Oh.
So the Emperor's Children become bad guys. The Emperor's Children are led by somebody called Fulgrim. Which is good. They are kind of like obsessed with being like perfect. But they keep the name Emperor's Children as like a bit of a kind of ironic burn. And they end up like just kind of going a bit batshit insane, but they're not very effective because they become so obsessed with like perfection and stuff that they actually kind of stop bothering a bit to fight, and so they're not really very helpful most of the time. And then Fulgrim ends up becoming like a weird snake demon, as you do. That's what happens to Emperor's children.
Wow.
And they come from a planet called Chemos.
Okay.
Thoughts them?
I mean, it's not actively stupid. I'll put it in not garbage. There we go. I think that's yeah.
Okay. We have the Iron Warriors. The fourth, they're also baddies. They essentially just become baddies because their leader doesn't like one of the goodies, and he's just like, well, because he's a goodie, I'm going to become a baddie.
Well, okay.
They don't have the best reasoning. The Iron Warriors are really good at siege warfare.
Right.
And so they are really good at like building castles, space castles, and blowing up space castles. And their leader is called Perturabo. They come from a homeworld called Olympia, so you can probably guess that they've got a slightly Greek-ish feel to them, although not that much really. How are we going to put the 4th Legion, the Iron Warriors, then, OT?
I don't know. I mean, they have a theme, I guess, and like space castles are cool. We'll put it in not garbage.
Moving swiftly on, we have the White Scars. The White Scars are basically like Genghis Khan in space, to the point where their Primarch, their leader, is called Jagatai Khan. They're literally just the Mongol horde in space. But rather than riding around on horses, they drive like the big motorbikes.
Space motorbike.
They stay good guys. They're really loyal. They protect the Emperor. They're like really good at like ship combat, space fighting, spaceship battles. But yeah, their main thing is mostly just that they're Mongols in space. Like, there's not really that much to say about them. They sometimes will have like hunting birds, like falcons and stuff with them, and they really like motorbikes and like vehicle warfare. So they like speed and stuff. But yeah, they're just Mongols in space. What are we thinking about the White Scars then?
I mean, it makes no sense at the very most. It might even be bottom tier. I think we'll go makes no sense. I think Mongols in space is stupid.
Okay, Mongols in space is stupid. You heard it here. The hot take there. We next have our favourite one, the Space Wolves. The Wolfie Wolf Boys. The Wolfie Wolf Boys are good. They're like space Vikings, but they like wolves. And some people think that they should be more Viking and less wolf. And some people don't care.
Okay.
I'm one of the people who doesn't care. Their Primarch is called Leman Russ, which looks like it should be pronounced Lemon Russ. But it's not. It's Leman Russ. Leman Russ. Leman Russ is a Viking. They drink beer. They go on like sagas. They have like quests. They ride big wolves sometimes, or they have little wolves running around with them. They also confusingly wear wolves. So the wolves are their friends, but they do kill them to wear their clothes. They come
Nice.
from a world called Fenris, which yeah, and it's a bit like in Star Wars, you know how like a world only has one biome? Yeah, the entire world is just snow.
Right.
So that's where they come from, and they are really violent. That's their thing. They kill stuff.
I mean, yeah, I think it's bottom tier, isn't it? Like, I think
Bottom tier.
They're not two random Latin words thrown together, but they may as well be.
Number 7 is everyone's favourites. It's the Imperial Fist. I don't even really think I need to explain them too much.
What's
the
the Primarch called?
The Imperial Fist Primarch is called Rogel Dawn, and they are. I'm not sure where they're from. I think they just live on Earth.
Right.
But they yeah, they're not really that interesting. They don't like the Iron Warriors. They don't get on, and they are also really good at building space castles and destroying space castles. Right. They're basically the same as the Iron Warriors, and so I think that's why they don't like each other, because they're like. There's only room for one castle boy. Yeah. In this
space castle ain't big enough for the both of us.
Yeah. The space castle cannot contain Rogel Dawn's enormous ego. They have like weird like fight cages where they like compete to see who's like best at fighting, which I guess is like kind of cool, like gladiator stuff. Yeah. But they also wear like bright yellow armor. And they're called the
Imperial Fist.
So, I don't know where you want to put them. Well, I mean, the name is dreadful.
The name alone was yeah. I mean, it's bottom. I think put it right to the bottom, like
right at the bottom.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And Space Wolves was dumb, but that yeah.
Okay. The 8th Legion are the Night Lords.
Right.
They're basically led by Batman.
Cool.
But he's called Konrad Kurz.
It's just the name of the Primarchs that get me. They're so dumb.
I think the Primarchs all like funny names that they came up with in like the 80s, which now they're stuck with, basically. Like Lionel Johnson, for example. But Konrad Kurz was... Right. He decided that he was going to become Batman, but rather than Batman not killing anyone, he's like the opposite, where he basically kills everyone.
Right.
And he manages to like make the planet a nice place to live by basically just making it so that if you commit any crime, you die. Wow. They do wear little bat wings on their helmets. And their icon is a skull with wings. Which is very Warhammer. Thoughts on the Night Lords?
I mean, it's not completely stupid. It is pretty stupid. I think we'll say it makes no sense. I'd say it makes no sense because I think Space Batman and his bat, like having bat wings on the helmet.
The most stupid thing about Space Batman is the idea that a single man can do Batman's job on an entire planet.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But maybe it's just a really small planet.
A small planet, yeah.
I don't think it is, but maybe. And now, number 9, we have the Blood Angels. Oh, Blood Angels. The Blood Angels are goodies. They live on a planet called Baal, I think. Baal. We're going to go Baal. And they are led by a Primarch who, for some reason, has wings.
Ah.
Not really sure why, because none of the others None of the others have wings.
Right.
And he's a human that just got like genetically modified. So I'm not sure. For some reason, he ended up with wings, some sort of mutation or something. He's basically that one guy from X-Men with the angel wings. Yeah. He's that guy, but a bit cooler.
Okay.
And his legion, the Blood Angels, he's like an angel, but then everyone else in his legion is like a vampire.
Right.
Number 10 are known as the Iron Hands. A confusing mix of the Iron Warriors and the Imperial
Fists.
The Iron Hands don't like being human. They would rather be robots. So they deliberately chop off bits of their body and replace it with like a robot hand. A bit like Darth Vader has a robot hand. I'm helping you with my Star Wars reference. Their leader is called... Sorry. Their leader is called Ferrus Manus. I don't know why it's so funny, but it's just a really stupid name. But anyway, Ferrus is basically the Latin for iron. So he's basically called Iron Man, I think.
Wow.
But in the lore, he loses both of his hands.
Right.
But he then, very soon after losing both of his hands, ends up dipping his wrists into some alien metal goop, which perfectly recreates his hands in metal for some reason. So he just has these like weird, like they're not like robot hands, they're like
just
they're
metal
like
hands.
they're like perfect hands, but they're for some reason made of this alien metal.
Right.
Yes, where would you like to put the Iron Hands?
They're bottom tier. As soon as their Primarch had Ferrus in his name, they were screwed.
Next, we have the World Eaters. The World Eaters are really angry. They get these things like implanted into their heads, which cause them like constant pain. Because I think they do that to the gladiators on the planet so that they fight better or something. But this happened to their leader, and you can't remove this thing without them dying or something like that. So he decided it would be a good idea to make all of them have one, and they run around chopping people up. And their Primarch is called Angron, because he's angry. Oh my god. I'm regretting doing this the more we fucking go on. We might have to make this into like a bonus episode because I'm not sure that we can actually have this in the real fucking podcast. It's just fucking, oh my god. Just stop. Where would you like to put these, OT?
That makes no sense. Like again, it's all fine until you tell me the names of the Primarch.
13th Legion are the Ultramarines, fondly referred to as the Ultra Smurfs. I think when we started wargaming, like the Ultramarines were universally hated because they're like the poster boys. But I think they have been rehabilitated a little bit. Their Primarch is called Reboot Gilliman or Guilleman. I don't know, it's like French. It's like Reboute. They are basically Romans.
Right.
And their whole thing is that they're like the ones who are actually like competent. Where would you like to put the Ultra?
I'm going to put them in legitimately interesting. I think they are not garbage.
Controversial. Number 14 is known as the Death Guard.
Right.
The Death Guard's Primarch is known as Mortarion,
Ah,
which
he's involved
is
in death.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, funny that. And they come from a world called Barbarous.
Right.
They're pretty on the nose.
Yeah.
How do you rate them?
Yeah. I mean, I've got to say, like, you didn't really I didn't feel much like emotion from you on that pitch. Like you didn't
There's
super interested.
I'm sure there is lots to say about them. I'm just not sure that I have much more to say about them. Like,
Okay.
it's like the sort of thing in 40k where like someone listening to these readings their 40k lore will be like raging because I'm not saying enough. And I do know a lot more about these than I am telling you because unfortunately I read a lot of this stuff when I was younger and it's now stuck in my memory.
I'm going to put them in makes no sense.
Okay. The 15th Legion are called the Thousand Sons.
Right.
Do you want to have a guess why they're called that?
Are there 1,000 of them?
No, there's 1,200 of them, but almost. And their whole thing. It's a bit like the 100 Years' War, which goes on for longer. But like the other legions have like hundreds of thousands, whilst these guys are very small. Their whole thing is like they have lots of magicians, but then magicians being a magic user or a psyker, as it's known in the 40k universe, is like illegal. Like the Emperor doesn't like it, even though he is a psyker. So there's a bit of
maybe he doesn't like himself.
Changing. Oh, by the way, their Primarch is called Magnus the Red. Yes, I think the Mayor also quite likes these, so you might want to consider that. And
I have to say, them being called 1,000 Sons and there being 1,200 of them is pretty unforgivable.
There's almost 1,000. It's not that
bad. I can't. That's a huge barrier for me.
Sons of Horus, who are called before that the Lunar Wolves. Another ones, but then they changed their names. These are the main bad guys because their Primarch, Horus, which is the name of an Egyptian god, he's the guy who starts the civil war called the Horus Heresy.
Makes sense.
Yeah, with definitely. They come from the homeworld of Chthoniya.
Right.
Are you aware of what a chthonic deity is?
No.
In ancient Greek mythology, a chthonic deity is a deity of the underworld. So they come from a planet which is basically called Underworld. They go bad, they rebel, they're the ones that make the other ones go bad, and Horus ends up being killed by the Emperor.
Cool. They're not garbage, they're fine. They're not garbage.
Not garbage. There we go. Good hot take there.
I mean, the whole point of this section is it's a hot take. Like, literally what we're doing.
Good. I enjoy though that it's a hot take based on very little evidence.
Well, exactly. I mean, it's the hottest of hot takes. Like
forcing you to make a decision based on my appalling explanation of when.
Well, because I mean, you care a little bit, not very much. I don't care at all.
No.
So like, it's ultimately like.
I'd say I care 1%.
Yeah, I'd maybe say 0.3%.
The next, the 17th, we're almost there. Oof, they're called the Word Bearers.
Are they really into space books?
They kind of are, but not in the way that you might think. Their Primarch is called Lorgar, which
is he into the lore?
No. It's not that one of those. And they come from the homeworld Colchis. I'm pretty sure it's an ancient Greek city-state. But anyway, they are really religious. Anyway, the word bearers then, yes, the ones that are really religious, that they end up worshipping the chaos gods instead of the emperor. The emperor doesn't like them worshipping him, so he's like, no, you're not allowed to do this. So they go, fine, we'll worship someone else, then you dick. And they end up worshipping the chaos gods instead.
I mean, it's kind of interesting, like them being quite religious. I don't know.
Legitimately interesting, or just
I
not
don't
garbage?
know. That's I'm maybe stopping short of that, but then maybe I'm judging too harshly. Put them right at the top of not garbage.
Oh, I've got a real feeling we're not going to end up using this.
Yeah.
This might go into that like filler Christmas episode we talked about. Right, the next one,
The final one, isn't it?
No. Because remember, there are two which aren't talked about. So even though this is the 18th Legion, because there is no 2nd or 11th Legion, you've got two more after this. So fucking brace yourself, buckle in.
So dumb.
No fucking escape. The next chapter are the Salamanders.
Right. Are they to do with fire?
They are. And
Wow.
their primarch is called Vulcan, which is the Roman god
Right.
of fire and blacksmithing. And their whole thing is that they come from a volcano planet,
Right.
which is quite dark because they don't have natural sunlight. And they make their own weapons, blacksmithing wise. Now, I actually quite like the Salamanders. I'd say that they, out of these, are maybe my favourite. Yeah, I think so. Mostly just because they're like not complete arseholes.
Right.
They're like one of
That's pretty low.
the bar is very low.
Problem is, like on a surface level, it's okay, but like as soon as you dip any further than that, it's just like this is so stupid.
The thing is, I think this is just demonstrating why so many people think that people who like Warhammer are weird. Because as soon as you try to explain it in like normal terms to like a person who doesn't give a shit, you suddenly just sound like a madman. It's like you're raving about fucking salamanders, which to a normal person is like a newt. Like a really fat newt. That's what a salamander is.
Chunky boys.
And Vulcans are mortal, by the way.
Right.
No explanation why, because none of the others are. But he is.
Okay.
Yeah. Thoughts?
I think you've gone for quite the hard sell there because you actually seem to quite like them. But I think these are clearly like based purely from your explanation the best ones. So I'll put them in legitimately interesting.
Oh, there we go. You see, this is why this doesn't work as an actual thing. Because if the mayor was doing this, you'd have been forced to put the Blood Angels and just.
Yeah, he'd have shouted about for 10 minutes about why they were really cool.
Yeah, I think Mayor would have put a much more resistance and tried to explain the law in a cohesive and sensible way. The next one, which you actually have heard of because we've memed on it before, it's the Raven Guard of Rickon Two Crows fame. They like ravens.
Yeah, they do.
They're emos.
Yeah.
They also like jetpacks so that they can fulfill their crow fantasies. I can't be bothered to explain any more about them. So,
what's their Primarch called?
Oh, their Primarch is called, I can't remember, I'll find out. Oh yes, Corvus Corax.
Oh, they were doing quite well until
they were doing well. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that Corvus is definitely like the like family that crows are part of, isn't it?
Yeah, they're Corvids.
And then I think Corax is just Raven. So I think his name basically means Crow Raven. Oh dear. Oh, and they're also famous for wearing helmets like in the shape of beaks. Not because they like deliberately have them in the shape of beaks, but because there's a sort of helmet that looks a bit like a beak, which everyone calls a beaky helmet. And they use a lot of them.
Right.
Not because they're cosplaying as crows. It's like a convenient coincidence.
Okay.
I feel like these guys have just instantly gone
Yeah.
from legitimately interesting to just in one short sentence. Is that what's just happened?
Yeah, the name of the Primarch was again just such a downfall. Like, that's so dumb.
Oh god. We need to stick to Lord of the Rings because we actually have an interest in it. Oh my god. This may never air. If someone is listening to this, then I don't know what we were thinking.
Mm.
Right, we've reached it. Oh, sweet bliss. The last one. So Legion number 20 is known as the Alpha Legion. Do you get it?
Right. Okay.
They're the 20th Legion, but then their name means the First Legion.
Okay. That's not a good start.
And guess what their Primarch's called?
Beta.
If you had to come up with, okay, they have two Primarchs. They have twin brothers, which I'll explain more in a moment. If you were going to name the twin brothers of the Alpha Legion, OT, what would you call them?
Omega and Beta. I don't know.
So close. One is called Omegon,
No.
and one is called Alpharius. That's right. They're called Alpha and Omega. Oh god. Right, and okay. Jesus Christ. Again, these ones are actually quite interesting, but they have horrific Primarch names.
Yeah.
And they're also really dumb lore-wise. Right. So, right, these guys are twin brothers, right? Except no one knows that they are twin brothers somehow, including the Emperor, who questionably made them, but somehow seems not to be expecting to find two.
Okay.
Which is, this is one of those things where somebody clearly wrote something and then had to write something explaining something and did a horrendous job. Their entire thing is like infiltration and not having like a clear chain of command. They were told a prophecy that if they fought the goodies, then the baddies would win. But if they fought for the baddies, then the goodies would win. So the decision to fight with the baddies might have secretly been so that the goodies win.
Right. That's a dumb prophecy.
Yeah, it kind of suggests that they're really shit at their job.
Shit, yeah.
Right, where are we putting the Alpha Legion?
Oh, just those fucking Primarch names. The fact that I nearly guessed them.
I know. It's just so on the nose.
It really is. Thing is, the rest of it's kind of okay. I'll put it in makes no sense.
Okay.
And we apologise if you would like to unsubscribe. We completely understand. Please don't leave messages of hate.
Comments are good for the algorithm.
It's true, actually. Leave messages of hate. If you want to also downvote this episode, again, we completely understand. There's no problem.
But no one will ever see it.
No one sees downvotes anymore because YouTube decided that being able to tell a video is bad and unhelpful is a bad thing.
Yeah.
Next up then is the final bit to make up the kind of little nub that just takes us over being an hour.
Yeah.
Because we could do a tighter edit and make these shows an hour, but we don't. So they're often an hour and a half. We are going to talk about a cut profile. Do you want to explain why this was cut, OT?
Well, it had to do with a member of the podcast who's not currently with us. Could be anybody.
It could be.
Who thought we were mocking the game and not taking it seriously.
Well, it wasn't that we were mocking it. It was that we had specifically said no meme profiles.
Yeah. And then you made a meme profile.
And then I made a meme profile as a joke.
Yeah.
And then he got quite salty about that. So we removed it, but we didn't cut it. Instead, we saved it for this episode. So we'll leave you now in the lovely, slightly slimy embrace of the Desnailator of the North. So the last, not Legendary Legion, Rings of Power army list that we created, a special one, to represent my favourite character in the entire show.
A huge part of the narrative.
Huge
I think, actually.
part.
One of the more memorable bits, arguably.
Yeah, and a tasty treat for Gandalf. He loves the snail.
No, the stranger, we don't know he's Gandalf.
It is Gandalf. The Desnailator of the North. So the special bonus for the Desnailator of the
You have
North,
to remember the fucking
the
profile.
army bonus, it's locked in, I know it off by heart, is that this can be taken with any army, but it counts as a yellow alliance. So you will lose your army bonus to take the snail, but you can take it with any army. That's its only bonus. It's a very good army. I would be taking this
To any tournament.
to any tournament. There is,
At any points level.
yeah, it would do very well at a 1 point
It
tournament.
really
I'll tell you
would.
what.
Almost unmatched.
Yeah.
With the
The
snail meta. The 1 point tournament meta.
the only profile in the army is snail, and let's have a look at it now. It really is a profile.
Again, it's inarguable. It is a profile.
One's in all the right places. So fight 1,
Yeah.
strength 1, defense 1,
Yeah.
attacks 1,
Yeah.
wounds 1, courage 1, might 6. Hold up now. There we go. Might 6.
Should give him what's my fucking rule called? Lifelong
Lifelong bond. Will 0, fate 0.
How far does he move?
1 inch move.
Ah,
There you go. That's very good. Heroic defense, of course.
yeah, he's a snail.
So he's
Well,
got
they're a
his,
snail. Sorry, we gendered. We shouldn't have gendered.
they've
the-
got their crunchy little shells to
Yeah.
protect them.
Yeah.
You can take a leaf for 1 point.
It's tasty.
It's tasty. It's very tasty. It doubles the price of the snail, and
does.
I would always take the leaf.
Yeah.
Mayor, what do you think so far of the profile?
He's not good at winning
That's
games.
fine.
He's good on a 1v1 with anyone in the game.
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with Mayor entirely.
It's a bit of a
there.
hot take.
It is a very hot take, but fair enough. He rates the snail.
I think
Yeah.
It's a bit too early to call for an.
I mean, let's just look through the special rules first of all. So, special rules, just the snail. The snail can be eaten by any friendly model, and you remove the snail from players if it was a casualty. Yeah, an interesting one.
Never seen before.
Never seen before. So you could break your own army deliberately, which is potentially quite useful. So it could actually be a useful thing to do in certain situations.
Yeah, there's a degree of. I mean, we're memeing, but like it might be OP in some scenarios.
Arguably, it's the only useful thing that the snail provides.
Is its ability to die.
Is its ability to be eaten by a friendly model in base contact. Its other special rules, it can't. No other model without the snail keyword can benefit from the heroics or stand fast of snail.
Yeah.
Just to stop it being OP.
Yeah. To be honest, I'm not sure I would notice if a snail was calling me to stand fast.
No, probably
It
not.
might pass me by.
Yeah, and that is the snail. Pretty strong.
Yeah.
Pretty strong. Mayor, do you want to leave us with any closing thoughts on the snail?
Why is he not good at winning games?
Because my 888 point goblin list can have 123 models.
Okay. But what are you going to do against the Desnailator?
Just let him kill my goblins and just take the whole board.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. He's He makes a good point.
Really good point. He really rates it though.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with Matt. I think ultimately you're never going to win a game with the Destinalator, but you are just going to wreck fools.
Yeah.
You are just going to fucking
He's going to
destroy
get
them.
the snail will get in there, do some work. You know, it might not carry the whole army by itself, but it's a fearsome opponent.
Hard work. Yeah. I mean, it can't actually strike,
No,
but it's going to win a lot of fights.
it will work hard.
It will work hard. That 1-inch move, OP. Any final thoughts, Matt?
Oh no!
Wonderful. And that was then the look at the Destinalator of the North. Hope you've enjoyed this Christmas pod.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
to all.
Christmas.
To all.
Or I suppose really Happy New Year, because it probably will go out at New Year time. But I hope you enjoyed your holiday period.
Yeah. Whatever holiday you celebrate.
Whatever holiday you celebrate.
It's inclusive here.
Yeah. You're probably not celebrating like the summer.
No.
Unless you're in Australia, actually.
Yeah,
I take
it's
it
true.
back.
Yeah.
I take it
Also,
back.
people can listen to this at any time.
That's true. In
And
many
they can also
ways.
like and subscribe at any time.
In many ways, ding that bell. In many ways, once something's been published to YouTube, it can be listened to at any point.
Yeah.
So
By anybody.
the idea of doing a holiday special is in itself pointless.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Please don't unsubscribe. Ding that bell. Hit it.
Yeah.
And it's goodbye from OT.
Bye, everybody.
It's goodbye from me. And it's goodbye from the mayor. Bye, everyone.